Shout out to G-Man Boxing.
Alright people, review of the week time, because it is technically still Monday. This should be up before midnight, so technically it's still a Monday review of the week. Now I haven't done a video in a few days. Simple reason for that is been pretty sick. Simple as. I think I had a bug. Well, I think it was a bug anyway. So yeah, I haven't even record videos not on your boy's mind. Wasn't gonna happen. But I'm good to go now. And several things have happened over the course of the week. Obviously Fury Wilder got re-announced for October the 9th. I'll talk about that now in a wee bit, but obviously the first major talking point which happened over the course of the weekend, over the course of the weekend, obviously Charlo versus Castano. Alright, I want to give my 2 cents on this. I'm going to have a bit of a rant about this fight now as well, because I didn't watch this fight live. I watched it the day after, and I obviously knew the result. I knew it was a draw. And I don't know if others find this. I know I do. If I watch a fight the next day, and I know the result, it does... do other people find this, that when you know the result, but you still watch it, it kind of just... I don't know, like the level of just... let's call it energy around it is a bit lacking. I certainly find that when I watch it and I know the result. Having said that, this was a very good fight. It was an excellent fight. Ruined by poor judging. How often have we said that? How often have we said that? A great fight ruined by poor judging. Now, I'm not going to go out and say this fight was a robbery as such. It was a close fight. It was a competitive fight. For me personally, I couldn't really make a case for Charlo winning the fight. Alright? Now, you might turn around and you say, like, oh, well, is that not a robbery? No. For me, a robbery is when someone clearly wins the fight. I mean clearly. Like, that's a 170, 111 type fight. But it's ended up either going the other way or going the other way by a big distance. So no, when I see a close competitive fight, I'm not going to call it a robbery. But I definitely think that Brian Castano won this fight. I scored it 5 rounds to 7, 115, 113. There's 2 things I want to talk about with regards to the officiating, but I want to talk about the fight first. Excellent fight. Charlo, for me, right now, Charlo is normally quite good when an opponent comes at him, bit like what Castano did, but Castano's his volume, he was able to pin Charlo up on the ropes. Punch selection was very good. Charlo was hitting gloves a lot of the time. Other than the left hook he landed in the second round, which is a good counter left hook, and it did hurt Castano, he really didn't have that much success with his counters. And as I said, a lot of the shots he was throwing at Castano were hitting gloves. He wasn't getting through clean. He did rally a bit late on, I'll admit that. But for me, Charlo was getting outlanded in a lot of these rounds by Castano. So for me, 115, 113, that's what I scored this fight. That's what I thought. At best, you would say a draw. And I don't have issue with anyone who calls it a draw personally. But for me, I can't make a case for Charlo winning the fight, but for me, Castano won it. The issue I have is not just the 170 and 111 scorecard. Even the judge who gave the fight to Castano, Steve Weisfeld, he made some howlers in there. I mean, Steve Weisfeld is a judge who HBO had on as their unofficial scorer for a little while in the early 2010s, because Harold Letterman was doing certain shows and then he wasn't doing some. So whenever Harold Letterman wasn't there, RIP to Harold Letterman, they would get Steve Weisfeld in as the unofficial scorer. Alright, and Steve Weisfeld, I've never really had issue with many of his scorecards. He's always seemed like a pretty decent judge. The 9th round, which is a round I actually gave to Castano, by the way, he gave that round to Charlo 10-9 or 10-8. Now, did you see a 10-8 round there? Because I sure as hell didn't. If you want to give it to Charlo, maybe, but I gave that round to Castano. But 10-8, that implies that Charlo beat the living crap out of Castano in that round, did everything apart from drop him. But he didn't. It was a competitive round. Where are you going with the 10-8 round? And he scored the fight for Castano, but what the hell was he doing with that? So that to me is a bit of a head scratcher. Is it Nelson Vasquez, the guy who scored this fight 170 and 111 to Charlo? I mean, it's scorecards like that is one of the reasons why people I don't want to say boxing is a laughing stock when it comes to things, but it's one of the reasons why boxing gets so much stick. You know, I've heard Teddy Atlas say this before. Boxing is the only sport, and you try and explain this to a fan, someone who doesn't know much about boxing, how judges, referees, officials are having steak dinner with the promoter of the event the night before, and then they're wondering, how come that fighter who didn't win the fight got the decision and he's getting all this, and he was out with him having steak the night before. It's just like, well, can't really defend it. You know, shocking scorecard, but we've seen it so often. Like, I actually kind of get annoyed when people turn around and give Eddie Hearn stick. And look, I've given Eddie Hearn plenty of stick on this channel, but when people give Eddie Hearn stick and they be like, oh, Matchroom scorecards, you know, Matchroom get this, it's like that everywhere. You know, you go and you look at Frank Warren, many of his fighters have got dodgy scorecards. Look at Dubois versus Joyce, look at Yard versus Arthur. Happen on Golden Boy cards, happens on PBC cards, happens on Top Rank cards, happens across the board. Poor judging, bad scorecards. It's beyond a joke at this stage. And you know, when you hear a scorecard, like, put it like this, right? When you hear a scorecard like that, you automatically know what's going on. You know something is up when you hear a scorecard like that in a fight that's reasonably competitive, and you're just like, really, again with these, like, how do you explain giving 9 rounds to Charlo? Because I can't fathom how anyone could watch that fight and give 9 rounds to Charlo. Can't fathom it. Cannot fathom that at all. And again, a judge gives a dodgy scorecard and no repercussions. It's just water under the bridge. They don't need to explain the scorecard. They don't need to explain how they got that decision. They don't need to explain anything. And they'll go on to judge, you know, fights again, no questions asked. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't really know how you combat it, to be honest with you, because at this stage now, it's been going on for years and years and years. I mean, Mike Tyson, when he fought Buster Douglas, one judge had that fight a draw. One judge had Mike Tyson ahead. Now, if you've ever watched Tyson Douglas, 1 round, 2 at the very, very most you could give to Mike Tyson in that fight. And bear in mind, one of them rounds was a 10-8 round with a knockdown. He was getting battered from pillar to post. That was in 1990, right? There was dodgy scorecards, and thank God that fight didn't go to the decision. There's dodgy scorecards then. There are dodgy scorecards now. It's been a recurring theme throughout the history of boxing. I don't really know how you could correct it at this stage, because it just seems to be something that goes on time and time and time and time again. Doesn't matter what, you know, the promoter is, or whether it's on Top Rank, Matchroom, Queensberry. It just seems like it's always going to be the case in the sport. It seems like for every great fight, there's one fight marred by a bad decision or poor judging, or, you know, like, you'd look at that fight, right? And although it's a draw, you'd look at it and you'd say, if you never watched it, you'd be like, did Charlo really, he won the fight, didn't he? Look at that scorecard, 170, 111. It's like, no. It was not that kind of fight. I don't know what the hell he was smoking, because it must have been strong, but it was not that type of fight. So, yeah, I've spent a lot of time talking about Charlo versus Castano. We've got more to talk about. This is review of the week, not review of Castano Charlo. But that's the main talking point. I would be interested to know what everyone else in the comment section thought about that fight. I'd like to know in the comment section what you think, how you scored it, what your assessment of the fight was. Let me know in the comment section how you scored it. Did you have Charlo win? Did you have Castano win? You think a draw is fair? But let me know what your thoughts are on 170, 111. That's my thoughts on it. You get the thumbs down emoji, you know. When you get that thumbs down emoji, you know it's bad. So let's see. With John Fury, I'm going through boxing scene. We'll have a little talk about certain things before we touch on other things. John Fury, Wilder cherry-picked Tyson Fury twice, third time may cost him his career. Well, I agree with John Fury there, certainly for the first one, where he says that it was cherry-picked the first time. Yeah, it was cherry-picked the first time. Wilder looked at Fury. Wilder went to see Tyson Fury in Belfast, saw him struggle against Francesco Pianetta and thought, aha, this is easy, this is going to be easy. It wasn't. Then the rematch got called by the WBC. Tyson Fury didn't want the original rematch, but then eventually it came to fruition a year later in 2020. But in terms of, the third fight may cost him his career, possibly. But it's interesting on top of that. I'll talk about the October 9th. So it's been rescheduled, Wilder Fury, for October the 9th. Now, I'm not going to make any plans about how I'm going to watch that fight or anything like that. Because knowing Tyson Fury's history, this has happened before. I've quoted this phrase several times on the channel. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I am a bit circumspect about this fight taking place because God knows what might happen between then and now. We've seen Fury out and about in Vegas. After all was said, and I'm just circumspect. And at the end of the day, with Tyson Fury, you take everything with him with a grain of salt. Tyson Fury is the sort of person, right, where if it's scorching hot outside and he comes into my house and he's sunburnt and he says, gee, you're going to want sun lotion going outside, I'll go and I'll get an umbrella and I'll walk out because I'll be expecting rain. That's Tyson Fury in a nutshell. That's literally how I interpret things he says. Tyson Fury in a nutshell. Frank Warren, Joyce will have to beat Carlos Takam better than Joshua and Chisora did. He'll certainly be looking to make a point, and Joe Joyce goes on to say that he does not expect Takam to last the full distance. He will certainly need to assert himself in that fight. Carlos Takam, even against Anthony Joshua 4 years ago, had seen better days. That was sure as hell wasn't a prime Takam. Wasn't far removed from his prime, but it wasn't a prime Takam. Now, he lost to Chisora 3 years ago, and that was a bad knockout in a fight that was very good. It was very good. If you've never seen Takam Chisora, I recommend you go and see it. It was an excellent fight. I think that Joe Joyce needs making a statement against Carlos Takam. It's a good opponent. It's a good name. He's only ever been stopped 3 times. Once was against Povetkin. Great fight. Bad knockout. Knocked out with a left hook. Second was against Joshua. That was a BS stoppage. Should never have been stopped, but AO. And the third was against Chisora. Again, that was a legit stoppage. That was a great fight, but a bad knockout as well in a fight that he was winning. So Joyce definitely has the power, has the strength. So does Takam, to be fair. Takam is one of the most physically strong, heavyweights you'll see. Very, very strong man is Carlos Takam. So we'll definitely need to see how that goes. Tszyu, Castano beat Charlo, but I believe I'd stop Castano. He's made for me. Tszyu is an excellent shout. He really is. For me, he's not a prospect anymore. He's definitely firmly a contender. And yeah, I'm very interested in what Tszyu does next. I'll talk about Liam Smith next. I don't know where they'll have that fight because Australia, for those who don't know, is not exactly straightforward to get into. Now, it's a country I would never visit. Even prior to 2020, it was a country that I was like, I will never go there. Even before 2020, I was like, that's not, because it just doesn't appeal to me. But I don't know how straightforward it is to get in and out of Australia, so God knows where they'll do that fight. But it's an interesting fight nonetheless. Liam Smith, he is durable. He's been stopped by Canelo. Been in there with Haim Mungi as well, went the distance with him. So Tszyu, we'll need to see how he gets on. Him against Castano, that's a tough ask. That's a very tough ask for Tszyu. Brian Castano is a very, very good fighter. Very good fighter. Peter Fury views Alexander Usyk as a serious threat to Anthony Joshua. There we go. So Peter Fury, right, is someone who has a very, very good boxing brain. Now, the Furies have always been like that with Anthony Joshua, where they picked Charles Martin to beat him. They've always been very dismissive of Anthony Joshua. But that's more so kind of John and Tyson. With John Fury, you get the impression some of it is wishful thinking, same with Tyson. But with Peter Fury is a lot more level-headed. Right? He's a lot more grounded. He's got a very good boxing brain, and he views Usyk as a serious threat. I do myself, but I think that one of the issues with Alexander Usyk, you'll get that video in the morning, by the way, I've already done one on that, is I think he's if he is weighing what he claims to be in the 230s, I think that's made this fight swing more in AJ's favour than it has in Usyk's favour. I still don't rule out Alexander Usyk, make no mistake about it. But I definitely think that it favours AJ more if Usyk's coming in heavier. You know, I think that if you were... Me, certainly, if I was on the fence before, I'm not now. If you know what I mean. So, that's been mainly what's happened during the week, you know. I mean, Dylan White has had a go with Tyson Fury. You know, he says that, you know, Tyson Fury is conning the public. Tyson Fury is definitely... he's definitely not making it easy for the sport of boxing. You know, I do hope that Wilder fight happens because, as I said, I wasn't exactly looking forward to it originally when it was announced, but ever since then I've kind of I've warmed to it a lot now, and the undercard as well itself is very good. So I hope we do see. I genuinely hope we see that fight. It's just you gotta judge someone by the track history, and Tyson Fury's track history is not good with regards to big fights and stuff like that. So for me, I'm skeptical that this fight will take place. I saw Ricky Hatton made a statement there where he said, what was it? He said, Fury versus Joshua seems further away than ever now. Yeah, it does. It does. I don't often agree with Ricky Hatton, but I do there. It does seem quite far away, but it's not impossible. You know, nothing's impossible. You know, it's only impossible when you give up. So until then, we'll wait and see. But with Fury, he has me scratching my head. I'm sure other people are the same. And some people are asking the question, does this actually now favour Deontay Wilder? The longer he leaves it, the more I believe it does, personally. But we'll have to wait and see come what fight night, if and when it takes place. I believe it's tricky. I want to believe it'll happen, but then again, I know Tyson Fury's track history. And God knows what might happen between now and then. Who knows? For now, I think that I've kind of done most of the week, and it's not even 11 o'clock yet, so I'm going to get this edited and uploaded, so I can definitely say I've got it up on a Monday, you know. But for now, lads and lads, I'm going to leave it with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, if you could, smash the like button. It really does help your boy out. You know, subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I know I've been pretty, by my standards, 4 days is a lot. You know, apologies about that, but at the end of the day, you know, I couldn't record, not a hope. I couldn't even do an audio. I thought about doing just the audio, but even then I was like, to even just talk for like 10 minutes was like, no, too much. So I'm back now, back to normal. So hope you're all good. Hope you enjoyed the video. As I said, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. #GMadsRocks, all that good stuff. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you